everyone. Welcome to Living in His Purpose podcast. Have you ever had a thought show up so fast, like lickety-split, that you didn't even realize that you were thinking it? And then immediately you felt frustrated with yourself for even having it. Like something happens, and before you even have time to breathe, your mind has already decided what it means. Maybe you assume someone is disappointed in you. Maybe you assume that you dropped the ball. Maybe you imagine how everything could fall apart. And then you think, why do I always do that? I want to slow that down for you today. We're probably not going to fix it, okay? When habits take us all our life to create, it's going to take the rest of our life to undo. So don't be hard on yourself, okay? I am not looking to correct you, but what I'm wanting to do today is to help you understand it. Because what if that first thought isn't proof that you're failing? Let that sink in for just a second. What if that thought isn't proof that you're failing? But what it is proof of is that your brain is doing what it was designed to do. And what if learning how that works actually changes your life? So we've been talking about the soul, where your mind and your emotions and your will sit, okay? Your mind is where you think and interpret. Your emotions are what you feel in response to what you're thinking. And your will is where you decide, what do I do next with that information? And that's your inner life. That's what's happening inside of us. And that's where our identity forms. But here's the part that we don't always talk about. Your soul is influenced by layers of thinking that are happening before you are even aware of them. And you experience life through these three levels of your mind. You have the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the non-conscious mind. And I need to be very clear here, okay? Your brain and your mind are not the same thing. Your brain is a physical organ in your body. If I cracked my skull, you'd see the brain, okay? You would not see my mind, you would see my brain. It has wiring, it has electrical activity. Your mind is your ability to think, reflect, interpret, choose, imagine. And when you think in a certain way over and over again, your brain is strengthening that pathway physically. And it becomes easier for your brain to fire in that direction the next time. So your brain isn't randomly deciding who you are, okay? It is responding to what has been practiced. And that matters for your identity, because if something was built through repetition, it can be reshaped through repetition. Now, it's not instantaneously, because trust me, if it was, I'd be a millionaire, but it's intentionally. So let's start with the part that you know you're using, your conscious mind. It is what's active right now as you're listening to my voice. It's where you are aware of your thoughts. It's where you evaluate what's going on. It's where you say, wait, did that bother me? And this is closely connected to the frontal cortex, right here in the front part of your brain. And the frontal cortex is the part that slows things down. It helps you weigh options. It helps you think logically instead of just reacting. And so when you respond, or when you have a thought and you say, you know what, I don't want to think like that, that is your frontal cortex coming online. And when that happens, your soul shifts too. So your mind starts to examine instead of assuming. And then your emotions begin to settle instead of surging. And your will has space to choose instead of react. And this is where renewal begins. But here's what's important. This is not usually the first place that speaks. It's not, unfortunately. Have you noticed how something can happen and you already feel it before you fully processed it? That was me for many, many years. I remember when I first started coaching and learning this process, that being told that my emotions were coming from my thoughts, and I completely disagreed. I said, no, my thoughts are coming from what I'm feeling. I'm feeling it first, and then I think it. But that's not what's happening. You are thinking something before you feel it. And then sometimes we feel it really fully before that frontal cortex has come on and processed it. So it looks like this. You get the email, or you see the look on someone's face. You remember something you forgot to do, and suddenly your chest tightens, your mind fills in a story. Okay, that's not your frontal cortex leading. That's the little guy called amygdala. This is a very small structure in your brain whose job it is to protect you. It is constantly scanning for threats. It's reacting quickly, a lot of times before your logical reasoning has time to step in. It's not trying to ruin your day. It's trying to keep you safe. But here's where it gets interesting. The amygdala does not react out of thin air. It pulls from stored experiences, which brings us to the subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is where you store emotions, memories, learned conclusions, and what we've been calling paradigms. And just in case someone did not hear the earlier episode last week, let me just define that really quickly, okay? A paradigm is simply a mental lens. It's like a pair of glasses that you put on. It's a pattern of thinking that you've built over time based on repeated experiences. It's not necessarily truth. It's what your mind has learned to expect. If criticism happened often, your lens may scan for criticism. If unpredictability was common, your lens may brace for instability. If you had to work hard for approval, your lens may assume you have to prove yourself. And now here's where imagination comes in. Your imagination is not random. It pulls from what is stored. So when something small happens and your mind instantly fills in a worst case scenario, that's not you being dramatic. That's your imagination reaching into familiar files that are stored in your subconscious. And because your amygdala is involved, your body can respond as if that imagined outcome is already real. Isn't that fascinating? Our brains don't know if something's actually happening or if we are imagining that something is happening. Now, that will shift a lot of your thinking if you think about that. Your mind forms an interpretation really quickly, and your emotions surge in response. Your will leans toward protection. Maybe that means you withdraw. Maybe it means you overwork. Maybe you're just trying to fix everything immediately. And all of that can happen in a matter of seconds. And when your imagination begins projecting the worst case scenario, like I said, your body does not know the difference between something happening and something you're rehearsing in your mind. And that's where a lot of times overwhelm starts. But we're going to talk about how to calm that response because you can. For now, I just want you to see this. Imagination is not the enemy. It is a powerful, God-designed gift. It just needs a little direction. Now, let's go one layer deeper because here's where this really starts to matter. If the subconscious mind is where your paradigms are stored, the non-conscious mind is where repetitions become structure. In other words, it's where something that you've thought over and over again stops feeling like a reaction and starts feeling like your personality. So let me explain that in real life, okay? If every time something goes wrong, your mind says, this is my fault, and you feel shame, and then you overcompensate to fix it, and that cycle happens again and again and again, your brain strengthens that pathway. The more often you travel that road, the smoother it becomes. And eventually, you don't even notice that you're choosing it. It just feels like, well, this is how I am. I'm just an anxious person. I'm just not confident. I've always been like that. But I want you to pause here. Have you always been like this? Or has that pathway just been practiced the most? See, your brain is an incredibly efficient mechanism. It strengthens what is used most often. So if the same thought, the same emotional reaction, and the same decision pattern keep cycling together, your brain links them tightly, and your soul is experiencing that as one thing. Your mind tells the story, your emotions reinforce it, your will responds in the same direction. And when those three move together long enough, it starts to feel like who you are, your identity. But automatic doesn't always mean authentic. Sometimes it just means it's familiar. That's a very different thing. Now, I want you to sit with something for a minute. If you can notice a thought, you are not the thought. If you can say, why do I always go there? That means you are now observing the pattern. And you can't observe something if you are the same thing as it, right? Okay, so that's huge. I don't know if I used the right language there, the right English language there, but you know what I mean. If you can see it, then you are not it, right? That's really big. It means you stand above it. Your amygdala may be firing first. Your imagination may pull from an old paradigm. Your body may feel that surge, but your conscious mind, that frontal cortex, can still come online and say, oh, let's hold on a second. Okay, let's look at this. That is not weakness. This is such a great design. And scripture tells us to renew our minds, not because we're defective, but because we're capable. We are able. And here's the hopeful part. Okay, that is the hopeful part to me. Like, if I know that I can change my mind, then I am no longer in despair. I now have the ability. So God knew what he was doing when he created us. He knew that part of our sinful nature is to feel shame, feel guilt, feel overthinking and irrational at times, and our emotions getting all fired up. He knew this, but what he's telling us this is, hey, you don't have to be stuck there because we're capable. That is the hopeful part. Now, research shows that when you intentionally practice new ways of thinking consistently for about 63 days, your brain begins to reshape those pathways. Okay, this is not anything magical. This is a lot of work, a lot of intentionality. Not overnight. It doesn't happen quickly, but gradually. And we're going to talk about the how later. But for now, I just want you to hear this. Patterns are practiced, and what is practiced can be redirected. So let's come back to overwhelm for a second, because that's where most of this shows up in real life. You get a text, you remember something you forgot, you think about your to-do list, you imagine disappointing someone, and suddenly it just feels like too much. Your imagination runs ahead. Your amygdala reacts. Your body tightens. You don't sleep well, okay? Your mind starts telling a fast story. This is going to fall apart. I can't handle this. I'm behind. I'm failing. And then your will jumps in to fix it, or to shut down, or to overwork, or to avoid. And all of that can happen before you have even taken a full breath. That doesn't mean that you're spiritually immature, okay? I thought that for a very long time, and that's not true. It just means that your system is efficient. But here's the part that I don't want you to miss. If your imagination can rehearse fear, it can also rehearse truth. If repetition helped build the pathway, repetition can help reshape it, not by forcing yourself to pretend, but by gently, intentionally practicing something different. And we will get there. But for today, I don't want you fixing anything. I just want you noticing. When you feel overwhelmed, what story is your imagination telling? Is it predicting the future? Is it disappointed? Is it letting someone down? Is that coming from a current fact or an old paradigm? And if it's an old paradigm through that old lens, what might change if you simply questioned it instead of agreeing with it? That's not denial. That is awareness, and awareness is powerful. So in closing today, I want to tell you, nothing is wrong with you. You are layered. You have a brain with structures like an amygdala and a frontal cortex that are doing exactly what they were designed to do. You have a subconscious that stores experience. You have a non-conscious mind that builds structure through repetition. And you have a conscious mind that can notice, pause, and participate in that renewal process. That is not accidental. That is how we were designed. So the next time that first thought shows up really fast, instead of saying, why am I like this, right? Maybe you can say something like this. Oh yeah, that's a pathway. And pathways can change slowly, intentionally, with God. One aware thought at a time. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, this is exactly what I've been trying to understand. This is what's been happening in me. This is the work I've been wanting to do. This is actually why I developed my identity coaching reset package. It's not to give you more information, but to walk with you as you gently untangle those patterns, as you gently learn to shift the paradigms and start practicing something new. Slowly, I'm going to say it again, intentionally, with God in the middle of it, because awareness is powerful. But getting support while you're reshaping those pathways, that changes everything. If this resonated with you, the best place to start is by joining my email list. That's where I share deeper teaching, practical tools, and first access to coaching opportunities. You don't have to figure this out alone. You don't have to rush it either. You were designed for renewal. And sometimes the next right step is simply saying, I am ready to look at this closer. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening.